Okay, cool.
Hey, I'm Brandon.
I'm Chris.
And this is Fill the Box. Today we have Matt Goetz on with us, one of Chris's lifelong friends, and he's going to tell you a little bit about himself. You want to do a catch-up?
Sure. Yeah, let's do a catch-up real quick.
I feel like we do it every time now, so we should probably stop saying, hey, do you want to do a catch-up?
Yeah, we'll
it's
just
getting
do it.
weird. Yeah. So getting real cool. We in the city of Hornets, Texas, we got asked to meet with a potential city council member.
Really?
Jake Falcon.
Ooh.
Dude, stellar name, right?
Nice, yeah.
For the longest time, we couldn't figure it out where he worked as a policeman. Figured it out. Leave it to firemen.
Yeah.
Dude did some, deep dives.
Yeah.
So we asked our cops to look him up on T-Cole. Nobody could find him. Weird. Super weird. But after that, we were like, all right, cool. Couldn't find him. So then we figured out he's still actively working. And then we figured out why we couldn't find him, which was also super cool.
Yeah.
So we found
He's
him.
important.
Very important. Anyway, we found him. Long story short. And so the problem was we thought he was lying to us. We were like, oh, this guy's not a cop. He keeps staying down south somewhere that we're not supposed to know.
Yeah.
Down south, technically. And he is an active cop, so that's cool. But man, it was just really cool that, to be recognized by someone who is going for a position of power.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, look, I know you guys are struggling. I know you guys need help, and you're getting a food truck park and a water park and all this stuff. But what are your resources like? Where do you guys need help? And it was honestly, dude, weight off my shoulders, man. It felt good to be recognized and seen.
Yeah, man. We've talked about it before on here. Is we don't do this job for the recognition, but it feels good when it comes, right? It really is a morale boost, and it makes you feel good when somebody goes, "Hey, man, I see what you're doing.
Yeah,
you're doing a good job."
Well, and then that goes into being at home, right? My wife is really good at it, so I'm not gonna say she's not, but occasionally she forgets I'm out here fucking working.
Yeah.
And last week on a wives episode, it was she does a really good job at it, but she has her own things to focus on.
Yeah.
She's keeping the ship upright.
Yeah.
So every now and again she forgets to tell daddy hey, you're doing a great job, daddy. I'm like, I need that from her.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't need it at work, which is why I don't need it in the cleaning biz or here. I don't need that from the podcast. I just need it from her. So anyway, it felt good to get it at work when somebody was like, hey, man, what do you guys need?
Yeah.
We see you working.
That's awesome,
right?
man.
So
I'm very fortunate where I work that we have a very supportive administration. Obviously, I don't work for a city. I have a board of commissioners that runs our stuff, and we are very fortunate to have a board that is all very supportive, and they go out of their way to make that pretty clear.
Yeah,
every day.
Well, and so that's one thing I miss working out there is dude, it was nothing but support from every direction, right? Yep. So it was weird coming to where I'm at now, and it's oh, those people don't necessarily give a shit about you. You're just peons, and you're whoa, hang on. I'm still a human.
You're just a piece of the puzzle of a bunch of other stuff.
You're a cog in the machine to keep it rolling. Just get out of the way. So it was, man. And it sounds kind of vain, right? But realistically,
that's the way it is.
It's nice to be appreciated.
Yeah.
And I think that's the base of where this is, right? So as men doing men things, right? People undervalue the trash man, right? Yeah. People undervalue the truck drivers and the dudes who are doing the fucking hard work, right?
They're just expected to do the job, and when it doesn't happen, people
that's when it gets real, right? So
there's no praise when they do their job, but when they don't,
once they stop, they're like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah. So
well, that's good, man.
That's cool. Meeting with the city council. dude. And our union's picking up,
Good.
right? So
Good.
we're trending in the right direction. We have people who want to get back into our union, which also makes us feel like we're doing stuff. I'm not on the board by any means. I'm just a peon in there too.
Yeah.
But I have a polo, so it was nice to get to wear the polo and go be a part of that and meet with the guy. So just a lot of pretty good things happening on that side of work. But outside of that, how's life for you?
You know, man, it's going. We just completed our annual physicals at work. We're using Frontline this year, or we have been for a couple of years now. And it's the first time I've done Frontline, and it's incredible. They're fantastic people, and they do a lot of great stuff. And it's funny because none of it was a particular surprise to me when they were like, "Hey, man, you got a little extra fat, and you should probably work out more." I was like, "Yeah, you're right." It's one of those things that I know. I know. Obviously, I know. And the last few months has been a lot going on. I haven't really been taking care of myself as much, and it's something I knew. But I think it was really good doing this when it happened because it was a good eye opener, kind of a kick in the butt of like, hey man, like probably get on it. So we're as a crew right now, we're real full on into all together eating good, meal prepping, working out together. We're all on board with that. So hopefully that'll last a while this time.
Yeah, dude. And that's what we're trying to do on our crew. I mean, y'all want to have like a Biggest Loser competition?
Yeah. We'll do it.
A shift versus C shift. I mean, well, easy, buddy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Hey, man, Jonathan tried to kill me yesterday by ordering onion rings and just putting them right in front of me. I didn't eat one of them.
Dude, what? I mean, what willpower, right? Because you know what?
Oh, you want to talk about willpower? I'll tell you this. The other day, so this is like a couple shifts now that we've been really hitting it hard of like, hey, we're eating real good. And last shift, day one of last shift on Monday, the devil was working hard, man. We show up to work. We're getting there, shift change, we're hanging out. We walk in, and there's a giant box of crumble cookies sitting on the table. And B shift is like, oh, hey, we got, and it's like not very much gone from it. So there's like 10 cookies in there. B shift is like, oh, yeah, it's cookies if you guys want it. And I was like, throw them away or take them home. I don't need them.
Dude,
we do not need them. I do not
want to see that in my face.
We put them in someone else's fridge. We were like, get them out of here. Well, that happens later on in the day. One of the hospital district medics texts us and was like, hey, their station's right down the street. And they're like, hey, we made cookies this afternoon. Sends a picture of them. Like, you guys want some? And we're like, no, we don't need them. We don't need those. And then later on that evening, PD comes over with 3 Domino's pizzas. And they're like, hey, Domino's made a bunch of pizza for us and you guys, here you go. And we're like, oh, thank you.
The devil was working.
Put them in somebody else's fridge. Don't need to see them.
My guy was like, I got you on this temptation joint, P.
Dude, it was a struggle. But we made it through.
Speaking of struggles, I almost forgot. We've been on a hot streak. Well, kind of a hot streak. We've had a bunch of vehicle fires, but the last vehicle fire we had was in an attached garage.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So we made a really good stop on that. And nice. It's been a while since we had a fire go well, at least on my shift. So it was great to have one go great without anybody bitching. So that was nice.
That's good. That's always good.
And on top of that, dude, Chief Balo, my guy was like, you guys did great. Didn't say anything I would have done different. I was like, yeah.
Man, I like that about him. He's really good about especially like in that moment, like any major incident I've ever been on with him, he's been really good about like while we're still there, he'll have that conversation with us of like, hey, you guys did this really well. Or like, hey, I saw you did this. Here's another way we could do that. Like I've been on extrications with him where once the incident's secure and we're all done and stuff, we'll go back to the car and have a full review standing there with him. We'll talk about everything we did. And he'll be like, hey, let's just try this. The car's still here. Let's try this and see how this would have worked. And so I like that kind of stuff. He's really good about making sure that you understand like, hey, you did a good job.
Chief Balo's a solid dude.
Yeah.
I saw him at Parker County Brewery one day and I bought his dinner.
Nice.
He had no idea.
Good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's a lot of good things happening out in the county, man. We just, yesterday morning, Battalion 102 went online. So we have in the county, where we work, or where I work, it's about to be 8 stations. We have 7 stations right now, ranging from Poolville all the way down to Annetta. So the whole north side, east side of the county. So a couple of years ago, we added a battalion chief on duty who is essentially the operations chief for the day, for the shift. And they are kind of the buffer liaison between administration and the line guys. And they also handle the day-to-day operations for the whole district. And in most big departments, it's split up into battalions, like 4, 5, 6 stations maybe. And that is their oversight, right? Well, where we are, we're so spread out that where they're stationed up north is sometimes 30, 45 minutes from a fire down south. So if they get dispatched to a fire, it's going to be a while till they get there. So we've been working for a while to get another battalion added. So Monday that went online in Aledo. So we now have a Battalion 1, Battalion 2 chiefs that are on duty now to kind of split that up so that we have a little bit better day-to-day operations and control and all that. So that's been cool. Those guys have been with us for a month or two now, just kind of getting their feet wet and figuring out how things work. And they've been riding with the other battalion chiefs, and they just went online on their own yesterday. So we'll see how that goes. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's it. We're running out of time real quick.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a weird space here.
We'll just get into it with Matt. We have Matt Goetz with us today. Matt and I have been friends for feels like forever.
Forever.
Yeah, long time.
Forever.
All through high school and all that, and college, and he's been a great support for me, and we've done a whole bunch of stuff together. Used to run around in high school and go over to his parents' house and terrorize his parents, I'm sure. And they were always great. I think they loved me. So
So much.
But
they love you so much.
So he's a realtor now and a Christian man, and we're gonna ask him some questions and kind of see what his perspective is on some stuff. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, Matt Goetz. I real estate investor turned real estate agent.
Okay.
Married. I have one daughter, Sutton,
Yeah.
who I love with my whole heart.
Yeah.
She just turned 9 months old, so
It's awesome.
we are we have nothing figured out.
I feel that 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Candidly, it just feels that we are like coming out of the fog of having a newborn.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Yep.
It doesn't get any better.
Yeah, my daughter's almost 5, and I feel like we're in that spot as well.
good.
So.
Oh, good.
Oh man,
Yeah,
came
so good
out of
luck.
the fog of being 4. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, what the hell?
Yeah, it's what everyone says. So we are just trying to lean into it every day and, not kill each other. It feels like
Yeah.
every single month we fall in love all over again. We get married all over again. We rediscover
awesome.
who we are. We have to go back to dating.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
because as she grows, our marriage grows and it changes.
Yeah.
And sometimes for the worse, sometimes we just have a horrible month.
Yeah.
And we, at the end of the month, we look back and we go, well,
Yeah.
that was that.
Could have been
Yeah.
worse, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we're still together.
We're still
Okay,
here,
well,
yeah.
we made it. I mean, that's a win. So,
Yeah.
Really is, though.
We try to
Yeah.
just move forward.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Every single person we've had on here, every guy that we've had on here has brought up their wife and talked about how important that
Mhm.
relationship is to keeping us going and
Mhm.
and how much they do for us. And we've talked about some of the struggles with that too. Obviously, last week we did the wives episode, and we kind of asked the wives for their perspective on some of that stuff. And but all the guys we've talked to, I mean, it's obvious how important that relationship is to keep going strong and not let it just become, I got a roommate and a kid.
Yo,
Yeah. So
because that's a rough spot to be in too.
Yeah.
So let's start with a really good question. Hey, this is not in your notes, so take your time. Didn't realize you're a realtor, but so, man. So like I said, I bought my house in 2020. I got one of super low interest rates. Dude, how does being in that market affect your mental headspace, right? Like with the uncertainty and the vulnerability, and just like man, there's going to be some hard days, some hard months, and then there's going to be like, oh man, we're doing great. We're not eating ramen. We got lobster this week, you know? Like there's like so much variation in it. So how do you deal with that mentally?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is finding your baseline.
Right.
You know, what is real and practical for all senses at mental health, physical health, financially.
Right.
What do we need to survive? You know, what is our baseline here? And from there, you can begin to draw boundaries. You know, I know a lot of realtors. I work with a lot of people that are in the industry in a lot of different forms, you know, investors or just typical clients that are looking for a single family home just to raise their kids in, or, you know, all the way to guys that want to do multifamily commercial buildings, and it's strictly business.
That's my goal.
Yep.
That's my goal.
It's so cool because real estate is just so vast. And so you really meet a lot of people. One day I'll be, you know, sitting on the couch at 11 a.m. with Sutton, watching Bluey, and I'll take a call from an investor. The next day I'm all dressed up and I'm going house to house to house with people.
Right.
And we're praying about the house. We're talking about, hey, this is where you're going to bring your baby home. And so I think for me, having boundaries looks a little bit different because my job is really 24/7.
Right.
And it can be very emotional. And so having boundaries that helps you understand what your goal is has been incredibly helpful for me.
Yeah.
The most difficult thing I would say is, you know, candidly, maybe a comparison or vanity.
Yeah.
Sometimes I walk into a house that's millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And you walk in and you go, hey, this thing is not, you know, a Hollywood castle. It's actually a really pretty gorgeous house with hardwood floors. You know, it doesn't have the chandeliers. It doesn't have all these things that you would think are in a multi-million-dollar house.
Right.
But it's got other things that actually draw you in.
Right.
You know, specific paint color, specific floors, specific, you know, natural wood or whatever it is.
Right.
For me, it was a tennis court on one of them. I was like, are you kidding me? This is amazing.
This is mine.
You know, I started envisioning, I'm going, oh my gosh, if I was here, I could play tennis with Sutton every single day.
Yeah.
You know, if I was here, Allie and I would be up in the theater, you know, watching movies all the time.
Yeah.
And you begin to envision, especially for me, you know, I walk in and despite where we're at in the year, I like to see where the Christmas tree is going to be in every house I walk into.
It's an important thing, man.
And I'm going, oh man, you know, the kids are going to come downstairs and I'm going to be sitting on the couch, you know, with a cup of coffee. And I begin to compare.
Yeah.
And I've learned how to guard my heart in that.
Yeah.
Comparison is
that's
the
a
thief
tough
of joy,
thing to
right?
do, man. I it's funny you talking about that. It's brings to mind something that I encounter not all the time, but a little bit with where I work. So where the district that I work in, really more so Alito's district. The next district over is a little more like this, but there's several new large developments with expensive homes there, right? And it's very much a place where people want to be seen as having worth. And there are many times where we have gone to houses for whatever the call may be. And from the outside, everything is fantastic and perfect and beautiful. It's a fantastic house. And you walk in and they've got lawn chairs in their living room because they can't afford to put furniture in their house because their biggest goal is to look like they've made it outside.
There's a term for that. And I'm going to say the edited version.
Go ahead.
It's called hood rich.
There you go.
There it is.
Yeah. We would call it house poor.
And that's on life, right? That's two different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Hood rich or house poor. Which one are you, right?
Yeah.
And that's all about your perspective, man. That's so I know we were talking about this earlier before everything was on, but so me and a buddy of mine, we went golfing. We both own businesses now. And so we started 10 years ago, 12 years ago, being friends. And back then we couldn't buy a can of beans together. Co-signed for it. Like we were both in bad shape. And then the other day we went golfing on like a Wednesday, Thursday in the middle of the week. And it was just like, dude, we got there and everybody was pulling up in F-350s, lifted, gifted, beautiful looking. And like dudes were pulling out $10,000 clubs and we were like, oh, we're about to go get smoked. And then I don't know, something happened in the first second. Like I just paused and I was like, hang on. I'm comparing myself to all these other people.
Yeah.
It made me forget that I'm golfing midday, midweek.
Yeah.
I'm not at work. I'm not chasing anything down. And like, I am blessed to be in that spot.
I'm not worried about what I'm eating tonight.
Dude, no.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about my next meal. I know it's either going to be some takeout that my wife ordered or she's going to cook and we're going to be healthy.
Yeah.
But either way, like, I'm not worried about that. Like I was so wrapped up in like, everybody's out here. There's so many people and like, it's just like everybody's doing better than me.
Yeah.
How can I get to that level? But realistically, I was like, dude, I'm out here on a weekday enjoying myself.
Yeah.
Giving myself time away from everything else. Like,
it's that thing like there's always, it's never enough, right? It doesn't matter how much money you make. You could be making millions of dollars. It's never quite enough, right? There's always something else. It's like you get that thing and then you're like, oh yeah, but I could have that now.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's like the downfall of being a driven person, right?
Yeah.
That's your drive, right?
Yeah.
You have to see things or see something and you be like, I want to make it to that next level.
Yeah.
Right. I want to hit that next goal, that next checkpoint.
Which is good. It's good to not be content with where you are to an extent. It's just like you said, it's not healthy to look at what other people have and be jealous and be like, I don't have that, when what you do have is enough.
Oh, not only is it enough, dude, it's probably more than enough, right? Because, man, you get lost in like what everybody else has, and you could really be. I mean, driving down here today is like there was homeless people on every corner, and that also made me realize, like, even walking into QT and getting a Red Bull was like, oh yeah, I have that luxury.
Yeah.
Right. Like I have money on my card to pay for a fucking energy drink when I could just be energized. Right. Like I could just go do enough workouts throughout the day to give myself energy. And instead I just chose a Red Bull with fucking tons of calories. But anyway,
so kind of off of that, we were talking earlier about managing your expectations, and I think that ties in a lot basically with what you were saying. Is we were talking earlier about how important it is to have goals, but how important it is to set realistic goals. It's great to have long-term goals, right? Like I want to have vast goals for somewhere down the line. Like I'm not trying to meet those now, but it's super important that when you're setting, especially short-term goals, that you set goals that are attainable.
Right.
Because if you set out to achieve something you're never going to be able to achieve and you don't make it, it's just kicking you down, right?
Right.
And you're a failure because you're not making it. And so we were talking earlier about how important it is to manage your expectations and not set yourself up for that failure. Because if you can set short-term goals that are actually attainable and you can hit those short steps, you're much more likely to succeed long-term than if you set these lofty goals that you get halfway into and then you're like, I'm never going to make this. I'm just going to give up. Right.
Well, and so, dude, we are kind of in the process of the Dave Ramsey snowball effect.
Yeah.
Dude. And it realistically, like, we could probably pay a lot of our debt off, but like training yourself to hit those small goals.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's like, hey, you have to pay off one card before you can pay off another.
Yeah.
And it's like the way you do that, it builds that mindset of like, hey, hitting a goal, hitting a goal, right? And it also trains you to have willpower, right? It's training you for when you're finally out of debt to not get back into debt.
Yeah.
Right. And so like the way you hit those goals and that feeling you get every time you hit one.
Yeah.
Trains you to not fall back into bad habits.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was the craziest thing to like realize that as we start hitting them, I was like, oh yeah, that felt great. Let's do it again. Right. Because we hit a goal. Like, and there's a lot of people who get hung up in that like long-term deep dream, like, oh yeah, we're going to get there one day, but they don't hit any of the steps in between. And that's where they drop the ball. They get into this like, oh man, I'm still not there yet. I'm still not there yet.
Yeah.
And you do that every day and it trains your brain in the exact opposite.
I'm about to say it's exact opposite thing. You get that feeling of failure every single time, and it trains you. Oh, I'm just not going to do that. It's like training a dog, man, right? They do something right, you give them a treat. They do something wrong, they get hit. So like, it's
Peter,
just like
don't
that.
come for us, Peter. He didn't mean it. He didn't mean it.
Just with words. They get hit with words.
Get hit with a bunch of affirmations.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you're right. It's like over and over and over again. If you're not attaining these ridiculous goals you've set for yourself, and you just continue to fail, it's okay to fail, right?
Right. Yeah.
But if all you ever do is fail because you can't make these goals that you've set for yourself, then you're never going to get there.
Yeah. You're training your brain in a negative manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I can jump on top of that because that reminds me of something that I run into very often with real estate agents.
Yeah.
Is especially the guys who come in and they are fresh. They are coming in and they're going, which is great to have a lot of motivation. Yeah. But I find that I very often have conversations with folks that go, I can't wait to sell, $20 million in sales volume this year. I'm going to take over the city. My signs are going to be everywhere. I'm going to, and they have this like kind of delusion of grandeur.
Yeah.
And
because that's what you see, right?
Yeah.
From the outside, you see the same name over and over again.
Same name over and over again. And then, it's this thirst to prove something and be almost so successful that then what? It creates a sense of security maybe for yourself.
Yeah.
But I find that it's the best advice. And so many of my thoughts about being a real estate agent or being in this industry are not original. These are folks that have been doing it for a long time that have told me these things.
Yeah.
And they say, real estate, you can make a lot of money short term. You can. It is possible. Yeah. And that seems to be the big market thing about real estate right now is go flip houses and you can make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
The best advice I've been given is that really real estate is long term.
Yeah.
Your investment properties are long term. Think about the stock market or Bitcoin. If you're trying to jump in and out, it's possible to make a bunch of money. It is.
Sure.
But there's a lot more risk there.
Yeah.
And so setting real manageable expectations coming in to sell homes, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You're going to have a dry season. And preparation is so important. What does my family need financially?
Right.
Month to month.
Yeah.
And if you have a really great year, is it really wise to go buy a new truck or to increase your spending?
Yeah.
The way that I run it is no. Pull back. If you can live on less, live on less.
Yeah.
Because that's going to eventually pour back into you, especially mental health wise of, hey, I've had a lot of failures. I've had a bunch of contracts fall out. I haven't had a sale in 6-7 months. And you know what? That is just fine.
Yeah.
And that is perfectly okay.
There you go.
I had an old timer tell me once, not an old timer, but one of the guys I used to work with was
like
one of
40.
he's one of my senior firemen. He told me every time you get a raise or every time you get like a cert pay, every time you get one of those, you go put that money into your 457.
Yeah.
Max out your 457 early, right? Recognize how to live off of what you need now and put everything else for later. And dude, I'm getting close to maxing out. I'm not there yet. Yeah. But I just got my driver, still hadn't got my driver pay. That's another story.
I
for
get driver
another-
pay. It's like $12 a month.
you know, hey,
So
but,
$12 a check. Sorry,
but like you put that in your. So that's what, $24 a month.
Yeah.
Hey, you put that, but no, seriously, you put that
Yeah.
towards your
Yeah.
457, and you're when you retire, you're in a different league, right?
Yeah.
And so once you have that piece of security of like the later, when you're at work, your brain can focus on like the now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it frees you up. Which is why I wish TMRS would go up to like 8%. I know they won't. I know they
Yeah.
can't, but it's just like one of those things to like, if you could secure your future today, you could worry about today.
Yeah.
Versus worrying about tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and something that you mentioned that I think actually correlates a little bit to the fire service is you talk about guys getting into real estate and having an expectation of what it's going to be like,
mhm.
and then it not being what they thought it was going to be, and then they're like, well, I don't like this. It's kind of I wouldn't say for everyone it's a similar thing with the fire service, but I would argue that most good firemen get into the fire service because they want to go fight fire, right?
Mhm.
Want to go do cool stuff. Like, I want to go into fires. Yes, we want to help people. I want to go into fires. I want to cut cars apart.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go do fun stuff. 80% of what we do is not that. Probably more than 80% is not that. But I'm not saying it's bad. Like, we have a great time. We talked about it last week. Like, it's the greatest job in the world. Even when we have bad days, it's the greatest job in the world. But talking to guys that are looking to get into the fire service, and yeah, it's great to talk it up and tell them it's awesome. And I believe that it is, but also managing the expectation of like, don't come into this expecting that we're going to go to a fire every single day because we're not all Tyler Ramsey. Okay?
No. Dude,
Tyler actually goes to fire every day.
yo,
Everybody else, it's not every day.
dude, 48s get so lucky,
Yeah.
man. I just watch it from the sidelines. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
those guys are my heroes.
Yeah. Like I said, it's awesome and it's a lot of fun, but I think it's important to come into it understanding what to expect, right? Because if you come into, if all anybody's ever told you about the fire service is that we go to fires all the time, we go to wrecks all the time, that's all we ever do, and you show up and your first 4 months, you just run lift assist and EMS calls, and you're like, this kind of isn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then it just creates that mental mindset of like, I don't know if this is what I want it to be versus understanding the expectation of what you're coming into, right?
And so I'm the guy, I dream huge, right? Like most people
you do.
dream big, dude. I dream huge. I have a plan. I started A and I am at Z. Like there's no in between. Like we see the end every time where we want to be. Realistic expectations are a pipe dream for me because it just doesn't exist in my world. So fortunately, I have my wife to go, hey, stupid. You got to hit some steps before that. And so one of my best friends, Nick, that guy is A 0.5, B, like B, B.5, C. Like my guy hits every step of the way, doesn't miss a beat. And so it's funny to see our businesses, Nick and I, in comparison, right? To like, I have a huge pipe dream to clean every venue, every home in the Metroplex. And my guy's like, hey, I'm just trying to poop scoop these 3 yards.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, yeah. But it's like, we're both going towards our goal, but he knows that, hey, I need to hit X, Y, Z before I need to hit ABC before I hit X, Y, Z.
Well, another guy is like Taylor Brantley I was talking to the other day. I was just chatting with him at the gas station, ran into him. We were talking about his business, cleaning pools, and he was like, man, it's crazy. I started this cleaning one pool, and now I'm up to like 120, 150 pools, something like that. He goes, it just stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks, and you build up to it, right? You're not going to get there day one. So
and so he's made such a name for himself. It's kind of funny that we brought up Taylor Brantley, but he's made such a name for himself. My in-laws found him outside of me.
Really?
And then they were like, oh, hey, do you know him? Yeah, dog, you should have asked me who I know. And so going into being
we're firemen, we know somebody in every trade.
Dude, but seriously though, being a fireman, you know somebody somewhere enough. So had a door-to-door salesman come to my house. He was like, hey, I'm trying to sell you pesticides. And I was like, okay, cool. What are they? And once he rattled them off, I wrote them down and I was like, I'm good. And sure enough, I was like, hey dog, you think you can get your hands on these pesticides for me? Fireman in Dallas. He's like, yeah, I got a business. I hook you up. Now, feds, he didn't do it because that's illegal. If you're wondering, that is highly illegal for someone to purchase pesticides and then give them to you. We didn't do it. But no, seriously, a fireman, if you need something, there's a fireman and he knows somebody.
Yeah.
And if he don't know somebody, he knows somebody who knows somebody. And it's just that simple.
That's man, anytime I need anything done or need to know somebody, there's a group of people that there's always someone in my phone that I'm like, this guy probably knows someone. So I'll call you or I'll call somebody I work with or somebody like that. And I'll call and be like, hey, you know anybody that does this? Every single time they're like, oh, yeah. Here's his number.
But so bringing it all the way back, that helps you set realistic expectations when you use the resources that you have, right? Because if you were doing this all alone, like you'd be just sunk. Right.
Yeah.
You'd be so desperate to find someone. Like you'd be on Google every day. Like, oh my God. And you'd be calling people and all that stuff. And it would just compile. But fortunately, we work in a service, a blue collar skill that where we know people. And that is a huge perk. But back to everything else. Setting realistic expectations is huge. And I'm not that guy. And I've realized that has helped my mental health through the roof because it helps me stop dreaming of dreams of grandeur, like you said, and it helps me bring it back home to like, oh, I'm back down to earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So surprised we get off track a little bit sometimes. We just start talking.
ADD, baby.
I have another question for you that's not just surprised. It's not something that's in the notes that we talked about.
We are off the notes today.
They're ridiculous.
We don't have to get deep into it if you don't want to or anything like that. But I'm curious just if you have some insight into your personal journey from like basically from high school to where you are now. Because I know like when we were in high school, we both had neither one of us are doing what we thought we were going to do in high school, right? And like I know, like when we went off to college, we had all these goals of like, oh, I'm just going to do this. And so I know you had certain things that you were looking at doing, and I'm curious what your journey has been like to get to where you are now, personally, professionally, with Christ, like things like that.
Yeah, my life has taken a complete 180. Graduating high school, I thought I was going to graduate from Texas Tech with a criminology degree, be a cop for a while, try to make detective, try to go the Fed route, because I wanted to, that's what my dad did, and I loved hearing about his experiences of working as a federal agent, and I thought, hey, maybe I could do something there. Maybe I could use my skills to provide a service to folks, and also maybe catch some guys that are doing some things that need to be taken away from the public. And that did not happen at all. Like at all. I went to Texas Tech. I got my criminology degree. And now here I am selling houses. So how did I get here? It's this crazy long journey of short put of I really fell into the world in college. The parties, the drinking, staying up late, obsessing over my grades. And just finding a huge identity in performance. A very big identity in relationships, whether it was with the person I was dating at the time, my friendships in the fraternity that I was in, the connections I was making to be a cop and trying to hang out and go on ride-alongs and shake hands and network. And I would get home and look at myself in the mirror and be like, all right, I'm doing it. This is cool. I'm checking all the boxes, passing my classes, but I was miserable, riddled with anxiety, riddled with depression. My faith in Jesus and how I would talk about it at that time would be confusing. because I knew who Jesus was,
Yeah.
but I was not walking with him.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I would find myself a couple of drinks in at a bar, you know, talking with people, and all of a sudden I'm talking about my faith because my heart really wanted to continue to walk with Christ. And I found that I just wasn't doing it. I was finding my
Yeah.
identity in everything else and my worth in everything else.
Yeah.
I got the A in the class. I feel better.
Yeah.
You know, I have conflict resolution with the person I'm dating. I feel better. I get a call back from a police department.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the man. I feel great.
Yeah.
I'm successful.
Mhm.
Rather than sitting and trying to find rest, and that I am loved, and that I am forgiven for the things that I've done or thought about doing.
Yeah.
And I rejected authentic community all through college.
Sure.
Mhm.
And that blew up in my face. My senior year of college, I've always had bad joints. I just genetically, I have
Yeah.
horrible joints.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And I like, the joke is, you know, you become a dad and you turn 30 and you
Mhm.
sneeze and you're sitting on the couch and you sneeze
Yep.
and you blow out your back.
That ain't no joke.
That happened to me when I was 10. You know, like I was sitting on the couch watching SpongeBob and I'm going, I think I have a problem with my knees. And I've always had bad joints, but senior year, moving gravel, I had a labor intensive job all through college and blew out my back in a manner that was just so bad. I had 2 herniated discs.
Mm.
And after a long candid conversations with my friends in police departments, they were like, man,
Yeah.
you're like, don't go through basic. You're going to put yourself
Yeah.
at risk. You're going to put the public at risk.
Yep.
So I walked away from it, graduated. I walked away. I went through a difficult breakup and I found myself in a position where I'm going, how did this happen?
Yeah.
And one of our good buddies, Jonathan Jones, called
Mhm.
me, see how I was doing. And I told him how I was doing. And he said, it sounds like you need authentic people in your life, authentic community.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you can continue to explore your faith. And I did. Got plugged in at church. And my life just began to turn. And I stopped worrying about where I was working, how much money I was going to make. I stopped worrying about this huge identity and serving people as a cop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I just started to develop a baseline of, what do I believe? What does my faith look like? Not my parents' faith.
Yeah.
You know, not my brothers, not my best
Mhm.
friends. What do I believe and why?
Yeah.
And from there, just started working wherever I could get a job.
Yeah.
And begin to grow this personal faith in Jesus
Mhm.
that realigned my identity to, it is not about earning it.
Yeah.
It's about developing a personal relationship. And I'm going, what in the world does that mean?
Yeah.
And it's just reach out, let's talk
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
A little bit here, put a little bit of your burdens on me here and there. And I, by the grace of God, never had to do surgery on my back. I ended up finding
Yeah.
physical therapy that worked, and I'm about 99% recovered,
Good.
which is
Good.
incredible
Yeah.
because I was
Mhm.
bedridden for a while.
Yeah.
And now find myself met an incredible person. I
Mhm.
married her
Yeah.
as quickly as I could,
Yeah.
and she's incredible. And I look back and I'm going, man, this is not what I envisioned, but I would, of course, we all say we wish we could change things from our past.
Right.
It
Yeah.
hurts. But the thing is, I have a hard time saying that.
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely.
wouldn't be able to guarantee that I'm here today.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I went through the trials and the pain and I messed up.
Yeah.
And I re-encountered a Lord who met me exactly where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I healed. And now I'm just going, what's next? You know,
Yeah.
I found myself feeling a passion for real estate and it's working well.
Yeah.
But I'm fully aware, hey, 5 years from now, if I'm doing something else,
So be it. Yeah.
so be it. Yeah.
Well, it's just
Yeah.
like you just said. Everybody has stuff that we wish we didn't do, but as 50 Cent once said, the sun doesn't feel so good without the rain, right? You don't get to where you are without its trials and tribulations, right? So, like, I feel
50.
like we haven't had the same journey, but I feel like we kind of went through a lot of the same stuff in that same time period, right? For different reasons, but through college, it kind of like you've described. It sounds like what we've talked about of seeing what other people have and
Mhm.
wanting that. it sounds like a lot of what you went through is some of what I went through of feeling like I look back on it and felt like I was in a position where I was trying to be what other people wanted me to be because I wanted to feel important and I wanted to feel like I mattered to people. So I was trying so hard to be what other people wanted me to be instead of just being who I am. And it sounds like that's some of what you went through is kind of getting stuck in a position of trying so hard to feel important to other people instead of being important to you and focusing on you and trying to get to where you are, right? So
yeah.
So next question. What's your motivation? So daily, long term. I know we just kind of said, you don't really, wherever you end up in the next 5 years, if you're not doing real estate, like that's all that matters. But your motivation, Jesus? Well, which it should be, right? Like, but so outside of that, what's your motivation to like do real estate? What's your motivation to like keep that going?
Yeah. Lifestyle has become a big thing for me. I work really hard, and it's to a fault.
Right.
And so I've, especially since Allie got pregnant, and now Sutton's 9 months, I developed kind of this whole game plan of, I want to spend more time with my family. And so a lot of my motivation day in, day out really comes from, how can I daily be a fixed point for Allie, for Sutton? How can I grow as a father? Not to be a macho man. I'm not trying to be an ultimate protector because I first realized I got to submit to the ultimate protector.
Yeah.
Right.
What in the world does that look like?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all heard, the from the message at church, is submitting. Yeah, but I'm going, but do you guys have it figured out? Because
how do I do that?
What in the world does that mean? Okay, so I'm reading my Bible at 5 a.m. and I'm going, come on. But is it sticking? I'm exhausted.
Yo, for real though. Quiet time gets a little rough every now and again because you're like, hey, Jesus, this message is not coming through.
I'm trying to get something, but I'm not.
I'm here. I see the words. I see the letters on the page, but it's not up here. It's not doing it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I get that for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's my day in, day out motivation. Long term is to, not to sound so hokey, but it's like really father and pastor my family, try to be a leader for my wife. So a lot of that looks more inward.
Yeah.
What does masculinity look like? I read in a book by Tim Keller, and he talks about masculinity, and he was like, self-mastery. What do you struggle with? And can you chip away at that?
Yeah.
Because, if you can submit to the Lord, and you can, do your best to be led by him. And then you lead with, being authentic in your life.
Yeah.
That's going to be influence.
Yeah.
And that's leadership.
Yeah.
So I haven't figured it out at all, but I think my long term is very missional for my family.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something you said earlier when you were talking about kind of your journey and how you got to where you were and connecting with authentic people and take a little bit of my burden here and take a little bit of my burden here is, I think, so important to what we are trying to do with this. And a lot of what we've talked about is trying to make it okay, or trying to help people realize that it's okay to ask for help. Right. And we've talked about it almost every single episode, is that as men, especially as firemen, but as men in general, we don't want to feel like a burden. And so we want to deal with our own stuff, and just put it away and not put it on other people. And it's so important to understand that our close friends, our inner circle, that's kind of what we're here for, right? I've gotten to, it took me a long time to get there, but with people like Brandon, I'm at a point now where I know he's here for me, right? And I'm here for him. And so it's okay for me to come to him and be like, hey man, I got this going on, and I got to unload it. I was telling you earlier, I texted him the other day, and I was like, hey man, I got to go do something tomorrow. Do you want to hang out? Just go, we do whatever. We sit in your garage and drink water for all I care. Like I just don't want to sit at home by myself. And so getting to that point of understanding, it's okay to, like you said, take a little bit of that burden and put it on one of those people that's authentic is so important to unload that sometimes. That we talk about, we tell people all the time to go talk to somebody, whether that's a friend, a therapist, whatever, talk to us. I don't care. That's so important. And I had to take my own advice because for however many months we've been doing this now, we've been telling people, go talk to someone. And ironically, the episode we did with the guys from Carencia, we're off camera and it was the last month, there's been a lot going on and I was sort of unloading on them. I just started talking, you know me, I just start talking and just go off wherever it goes. And so I was kind of just venting, I guess, to them. And one of them just looks at me, he was like, sounds like you probably need to go talk to somebody. And I was like, okay. So I did. I was like, man, we've been telling people to go talk to someone. And I'm not talking to anybody other than my friends, which is great. It's super helpful to have guys I can go to and just vent to, right? But I realized in that moment, I was like, I need to find someone I can talk to who can give me some tools to process and help with it, right? Because like I said, my friends are great, and it's great to go hang out with him, with Dusty, with these other guys, Justin, and just talk and get it out. That's so important. But it's also important to have somebody that can provide you some response and tools to help process that. And so I did. I went and I talked with some people that are close with me, and like we said, firemen know everyone, right? So I went to firemen. I was like, I need to talk to somebody. Who can I go to? And they got me in touch with a therapist, and so
up in Decatur,
actually, in Decatur. Places. She's awesome. She's fantastic. Nice. And it's I go for my second session tomorrow. I've only done one so far. Nice. The second session is tomorrow, which is really convenient time because the last week has been a lot. So there's a lot to get out. But
it's been foolish.
It's been foolish. So it's one of those things, man, that I am realizing I gotta take our own advice, right? Like we've been telling people to go talk to someone, and I was like, I'm not talking to anybody. So
it's a game changer.
Yeah. So
I remember deciding to go to therapy. And making that call, it was the hardest part. And then you get into a routine; it becomes part of your routine. I initially jumped into going to talk to someone because I believe it or not, as quiet and maybe outgoing as I may come across, I have a lot of anger and frustration in my heart. And that's what I went for. And I was like, all right, I'm ready to be healed. And I show up, and I've been doing it for over a year now. And we've been building trust and chipping away at that block. And we find that, hey, that's a symptom. What it is loneliness for me. You feel pretty lonely. And I also have ADHD and that
Vyvanse gang, baby. Look at us go.
And he was like, I think that you've been untreated for your ADHD on an emotional level for quite some time. And that's it's been kind of perpetual in your life of this anger, frustration, and then shame because you have outbursts. And there was a point where my wife looked me in the eyes and she was just like, I don't think you're okay. Like she's like, I know it's not me. But you are heavy. And would you want to talk to someone? And I was like, yep.
Man, and that what you just said is so important, and we've said it multiple times again on this, is that all it takes sometimes is somebody that you trust to look at you and go, hey man, are you okay? Like, truly, are you okay? We talked about it many times. Like a lot of the time we just say, yeah, man, I'm good. And we just leave it at that. Right? But like, it takes a close friend to do that, right? It's not like I'm going to go to somebody I just kind of know and really pry and see what's going on. But like with me and Brandon, we are at the point now where if he asks me like, what's going on, man? If I'm like, yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. If it's anything other than that, he's like, are you good? Like, what's going on?
Are you sure you're good?
Like, it doesn't sound like it. And so just sometimes it just takes that little bit from somebody you trust and love to take that step and be like, are you really okay? Like, I don't think you're okay. It's not that it's from a place of love, right? So,
yeah, definitely.
So I remember what I was going to say now. So about being authentic. So somebody made a post and they said, in today's world, we ultimately are trying to conform to everyone around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you are just your foolish, like happy-go-lucky, weird self and be unapologetic for it, right? So in today's world, people are ostracized for being Christian. They're being ostracized for like taking their kids off a red dye 40. Like that is the weirdest shit you'll hear is like, hey, no, my kids don't do sugary drinks and like foods with red dye in them. And people go, why not? That's so weird of you. But
cool.
That's like, I'm just trying to make my kids healthier.
Yeah.
Right. But those people, they go, oh, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Those people weren't meant to be in your circle, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's like when Dusty gives me crap for eating ketchup with stuff. I'm like, look, man, it's just who I am. All right.
Oh.
You really do that.
Yeah.
And I remember in high school the first time watching you dip a taquito in ketchup, and I remember thinking, what in the world?
Whataburger taquito?
No, like a Crispito, like a cafeteria Crispito.
Crispito. And then I tried it, and I was like, this is bomb. This is so good.
It's just the sugar. He just wants the sugar out of the ketchup. That's all that is. That's all ketchup is sugar.
In red dye 40.
In red dye 40.
A bunch of red dye.
Hell yeah.
40.
Yeah, tismed up.
Yeah.
But seriously though, right? But every time, that's a perfect example, right? Like that guy was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But since he's supposed to be in your circle, he tried it, right? Yeah. And he was like, "Oh, it is bomb." Yeah. I mean, we weird as hell now, but that's bomb.
You're absolutely right, though. Is having that response to people of like, you think differently than me, so that's weird. It's not how it should be, right? You think differently than me, that's fine. Unless you're affecting me and my daily life and what I do, then we're gonna talk about it and we're gonna compromise. But
maybe it depends on if it's your wife or not.
Yeah,
and then compromise looks weirdly like you're gonna compromise and she's not.
Well, like I had, without getting into too many details, I had a pretty long conversation with a guy the other day. We had we'll say a difference of opinions on a pretty important topic. And it was the first time in my life that I had approached a professional conversation that I knew we weren't going to agree on and understood that we weren't going to agree, and that's okay.
Right.
But we have to have this conversation, right? I didn't go into it like, F that guy, I'm right. I went into it like, I know we're not going to agree. I understand you feel strongly about your side. I feel strongly about my side, but it's important for us to discuss it so that we can hear each other.
Right.
And so we had that conversation. I got some other issues about it, but that's neither here nor there. But understanding that just because somebody thinks differently than you, that's okay. It's not the end of the world always. Sometimes it is.
But, right. But and so I think kind of the point I was trying to make is like, exactly, like those people may not be meant to be in your circle, so you don't want to conform your morals or your goals or what you think is right to what somebody else thinks is right, because fucking long term, neither one of you motherfuckers may be right. You both may be wrong, and so there's no point in conforming to what you both believe, right? So I'm not saying stick to your guns when you're wrong. Like listen and heed good advice.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, if you feel strongly enough about it, and you have enough research backing, it's biblical, like, dude, stick to it.
Man, and I got a 2-part response to that. One, absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of, if you believe in something, stand up for it and be who you are, and I will respect you for that. If you stick to what you believe, I respect. We may disagree, but hey man, that's what you believe and you stick up for it, that's fine. You don't get swayed easily.
Long term, that's going to help your mental health.
Yes, absolutely. The other part of that is we tell people to do that and have opinions, right? And then when people change their opinion, we criticize them that, oh, you can't change your opinion. This is what you thought.
Right.
Well, I'm an adult. If I'm provided with information that changes my opinion, I'm entitled to change my opinion, right? Yeah. If I make my choices and decisions based on the information I'm provided, right, and the information I can find. If you give me good enough information that I can go, actually, yeah, maybe I was wrong. I'll change my mind on that. Yeah. I'm entitled to do that. It's okay to change your opinion. It's not okay to just, well, I don't want to say it's not okay. It's not healthy to, like you said, conform. Change your mind just because you're trying to fit in with somebody else or be like somebody else or feel important to that person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big thing I've learned candidly in the last year about, and my counselor called it value systems. And he's going, hey, for the sake of this conversation, let's get rid of the words right and wrong, and let's fill it with what people value. In my industry, I run into a lot of people who say words like, you should do this. They need to do this. These really heavy hitting words pertaining to real estate. A good example would be, hey, I'm renting a home and I have no interest in buying. I want to rent for the rest of my life. And a lot of people in my industry will say, well, you should want to buy a house. You need to start saving money. And they overlook and to a big degree invalidate what that person is saying, because renting can be very purposeful.
Yeah.
Renting can be an incredible tool to explore a city, to explore a job, to not jump into loads of debt, and you live, not month to month, but your responsibilities are more month to month rather than a 15 or 30 year note. And I have to slow down people and sometimes say, hey, did you investigate why they value renting?
Yeah.
Because you believe that for your life and for what you value with your finances is that more money is right, that you're more secure financially, like the whole financial freedom movement of our generation.
Yeah.
Bigger pockets talks all the time. Oh, passive income. And then you're financially free. There is a lot of health behind that.
Yeah.
And I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Also, if someone doesn't value those same things, who's to say objectively you should have financial freedom, that this is objectively correct? So it and anyways, it's a whole thing about value systems of that when someone expresses something that's different from you, exploring why they value that.
Yeah.
Before severing that.
Yeah. Well, and exactly what you're saying is all about perspective, right? And so I have a perspective, you have a perspective, Brandon has a perspective, and I, exactly like you just said, just because I value one thing doesn't mean you guys value the same thing, right? And it's not my place to tell you, you need to do this because it's important to me. That might not be important to you. And so I would imagine it's very important in what you do of it in that situation. For instance, somebody who wants to rent forever, instead of coming at them and saying, well, you should be doing this, I feel like it's likely that you probably have a responsibility to provide advice and be like, well, here's all the reasons why it can be important to do these other things. But it's also incredibly important for you to hear their perspective and the details of their situation so you can understand where they're coming from, right? Instead of seeing a situation and forming an opinion on it without knowing what that other party has going
forming
on.
An opinion. And then what I see into the next step would be assuming responsibility for that.
Yep.
I see how you're running your rental portfolio, or I see how you're running a company, or off the top of my head, I see how you're running let's say a nonprofit, and I want to take over and give you advice and say, you should be doing it this way based off of what I think.
Yeah.
And so meeting people with compassion and grace and saying, well, explain that to me, because, we may be dropping the ball here saying right and wrong. And maybe it's not so black and white, and it really comes down to values. Now, the caveat there is who's the governing body of when something becomes healthy or unhealthy?
Sure, yeah,
right.
And as believers, we would say, well, the Bible, Jesus. If something becomes, if someone says, I value murdering people, you're going to say, well that doesn't matter. Please don't do that.
I'm going to argue with you on that one.
But to a degree,
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's not trumping what you would believe, and what we know to be true about, our Lord, it can be hairy between people when they start saying things
it's like
should.
We see, you see it every day on social media with all over the place with every situation, right? Is social media especially is that place where people feel like they can say whatever they want to say, and it's not a person, right? So they can say what they want to say and they feel a little safer in it. But you see it all the time where people see something on social media, don't know any of the details or the behind the scenes or anything about the situation, and decide, I have an opinion on this, right? You have no idea. You have no idea what that person has going on, right? And so back to how we started all this, the perspective and your values and understanding that is so important to understand that it's okay to be different. It's okay to not conform to what other people are looking at you to be. So,
right. And dude, and if people aren't meant to be in your circle, don't force them to stay. I think I did that for a long time. Like I was just having dudes hang around for company, right? I didn't want to be lonely, right? Yeah. And so you're like, oh yeah, man, come on, let's go do this. And then you're like, why am I out at a bar at fucking 2 p.m. getting drunk? Like, oh, that's because that's what Mike wanted to do because Mike's going through some shit.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going through that same shit and I need to figure my shit out. Right. So I don't know. It's been a long road for me too. Like, you know, and so we talk about where we start and where we come from. Like, I think it was different for you guys because y'all went to college on purpose. I went to college to play football. I did not go to college to get education. And it was, I ended up at Tech a bunch. And that was what, a 5.5 hour drive from East Texas. So it's been wild.
Yeah.
We went down to SFA a bunch and went over to Tyler a bunch. And it was just, oh, I'm not really in school to be at school. I'm in school as a social club.
Yeah.
And my grades clearly reflected that. Yeah. You can't be in East Texas. Well, you can't be deep East Texas and up in Lubbock and have passing grades.
Right.
But it was a whole bunch of like, I wanted to fit in with the group and not be lonely. So I would go anywhere and do anything with anybody. I was, dude, when I was worldly, I was lost. There was zero compass. Anyway.
You say it however you want, man. It's your perspective.
But I mean, if I value the way I say compass, then does that make me right or wrong? You know,
I'm not going to argue with you on it. But that kind of, I know we're probably getting to the end shortly, but we've talked a little bit about Christ and kind of putting our values in Him and trusting Him, and how for most people, it takes a long time to get through that journey of seeing that and understanding that, right? Because like you mentioned earlier, when you're in college, outwardly, you were a faithful, Christ-driven man, right? But inwardly, you're not living that. And I feel like I was in a pretty similar place through college, not at the beginning. So at the beginning of college, when I started college, I just got driven right away from Christ. I didn't want anything to do with it because of my dad and what he did. But kind of the back half of college, I would get to a point where I was like, oh, I'm interested in that. And I would say like, oh, actually, like I have faith, but I wasn't living that. And so I think it's ironic how life works, right? Like I met Taylor in Weatherford, and she also went to Tech. And so I ended up going out to Tech all the time the last couple years of college. And I was like, well, Matt's there. I'm going to hang out with Matt while we're here. Yeah. And so I ended up hanging out with you a lot while I was up there. And we were both in different places, but sort of a similar mental place almost. Not the same, but kind of struggling with similar deals, right? And sort of neither one of us were in a position to, I don't want to say we weren't in a position to help each other, but we weren't in a position to say to each other like, hey, have you thought about this? Or like, can I help you in a different way? We were both like, let's go drink. Like this will be fun. Yeah. And so that was like every week because I went up there like every week, and that's all we did. And so it's funny because internally, it's like you say, you go home and you look in the mirror and you have those internal thoughts of like, I don't want to be doing this. This isn't who I am, but I can't stop. And I had those same thoughts. And I remember I told Allie on your wedding day, I was a little drunk and I cried to her, but I cried to multiple people that day, including your parents.
Dude, I cried all day too. So
I told your wife when y'all got married, I said, I've prayed for you for years. For Matt. I was like, I didn't know it was going to be you, but I've prayed for you for years. And I'm so grateful to Christ that he provided you for Matt, because I know what we went through in college, and I know that it like you went through and I went through in different stuff, but while I may not have said it back then, internally it was stuff that I knew was like, this guy needs guidance.
Mm-hmm.
He needs a track, and right now he's not on that track. And so, anyway, all I have to say, we always say it's funny how Christ works and puts people in your life at certain times, but you got to go through it to get to the other side. So,
yeah. In that point of my life, the way I could best explain it, when we were talking about Christ, you're tethered, not anchored, right?
Yeah.
So you think about a boat out in rough seas, two boats, right, tethered together, but they're just out and about, being thrown by the wind, waves, current, and they're just going. But when you're anchored, dude, you're locked in. And so you anchor to the Bible with your brothers, right? And so one of you gets anchored, and then the other one
We're
comes
just making a little boat club, dude.
Dude.
We're just rowing.
Yeah.
Redneck Yacht Club.
Yeah.
Dude. And you just get anchored, man. And it's been a blessing to be anchored with people that see shit the same way I do.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like life, and then how to disseminate that with the Bible, right? Like we just talked about, like, man, some days the Bible is just words on a page, and you're trying to be in it, but like it's just missing you, right? Your brain's not on the same page. But it's nice to know other people see that same struggle and feel that same struggle, and they still find their way back, right? So, I think that's really cool, and that's definitely what being anchored in the Word is about, is being anchored with your brothers.
Yeah.
So to elaborate on that.
Well, and all that being said, like I said back then, I don't think either one of us were really in a place to feel confident enough to reach out and be like, "Hey, man, I think you need help." Like, I think you need something. Well, neither one of us are in that place, but it's crazy how, like, looking back at where I'm at now in my life, doing all this 10 years ago, this is not what I thought I would be doing, right?
Not in the slightest.
No. And so growing up and becoming who you are and feeling confident in that, I feel so much more confident in who I am now, to where if I see you and I have a feeling like, hey man, something's not quite right, I'm much more likely to reach out and be like, are you good? And I'm going to check on you, instead of just being like, he'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Mr. Goats, what a name! What a name!
Not as cool as Jake Falcon or what was
Oh
his name?
yeah, Jake Falcon.
That's cool.
I don't know. Your dad's name's always been cool to me.
Donald.
Yeah, like Donald Goats.
Yeah.
Like
versus
also,
Donald Duck.
Yeah, like I just always saw him as Gibbs.
Gibbs,
based on your poster in your room.
Yeah, it's just like Gibbs.
He had a poster in his room when we were in high school of it was the NCIS show with all the people in it and Gibbs in the front, but it was his dad, because that's basically what his dad did. Yeah, and he basically looks like him. So
my dad looks just like Gibbs. Yeah, it's just like him.
Okay,
yeah, with a handlebar mustache.
He also had this really cool Fiat. That that's my biggest memory of your house, other than your fire pit in the back.
Yeah,
just walking through the garage, and every day I'd like see this little, was it orange Fiat?
Yeah, Fiat like, 500. It's like a neat 1970.
Oh, like an original Fiat.
Yeah. Do you want it? They're trying.
I mean, I don't want to pay for it, but
oh god, at this point,
I mean,
Dad probably he'd be like, "Oh, Chris Wilmer, yeah, you can."
Yeah, he owns a fire truck now, so I don't think he needs a Fiat. But a good ending question is, so one, what's your outlook on men's mental health? And then two, what's your goals for your daughter's husband? I know she's 9 months, but me and my wife had this conversation the other day, because we were talking about like a lot of life, a lot of things that I do, she will see in a man. So what are your daughter's what are your goals for your daughter's husband?
Those are big questions.
Some good questions.
Huge questions, right?
Yeah.
So but it just came to me because, we were talking about like circles and, being authentic and all that stuff. So like realistically, like mentally, what do you see your mental health as, right? Like one, yours, and then what would you like to see that you portray for your daughter, and then that would come out of her husband eventually, right?
Yeah.
You got what?
I got you.
Hopefully 20 years to wait on that. So
Yeah. Oh,
25,
gosh.
dude.
I wish I had more.
Way more.
I think to answer your first question, men's mental health. I love what y'all are doing here. Every time you drop a podcast, I try to listen real quick because it's just, in my personal experience, not talked about. It's just not.
Yep.
And when it is talked about, it's quite brief, and we always have some type of caveat to justify why we're talking about it. You know, it's like, oh, men's mental health is so important, but let's not forget inequalities here, and here.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little ready to just lean in and validate, but also talk about hard things about, you know, hey, men, it is not on your wives. Your wives are not responsible for you. You got to start reaching out. You know, I'm ready to talk about, you know, a little bit harder stuff. And so thank you for having me on here. I do think that it's overlooked, and I can't wait to see what you guys do more and uncover more in serving your community. So in terms of my mental health and what I want to continue to grow in, and the direction there is, you know, that Sutton can see it
exactly,
and look for that in her husband. Of course, the biggest component that I've been talking about the whole time is I would love for her to see that what I believe, the decisions and the things that I do, it's because it's what I believe. And it's not because grandma or grandpa do it or because the church does it.
Yeah.
It's personal. It's real. And I want her to lean into that journey for herself.
Definitely.
On a smaller sense, you know, I know that if I can have all these big words and all these big dreams for her on how I'm going to show her that that I'm a fixed point, that I'm steady, I'm secure. I also want to show her that I'm kind.
Right.
You know, I want her to know that hey, you know, dad's going to have bad days, and if I'm creating an environment in the house that puts pressure on Allie or puts pressure on Sutton, or I'm short-tempered with Allie, she's going to see that too.
Right.
And I want her to know that she can stand up for herself. She can tell me, hey, Dad, that hurt my feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a sinner. I'm going to be broken. She's going to see me be broken. But I want her to feel empowered and comfortable to talk to me. And I want that also to be practice when I receive that, not to invalidate her, but to listen and have real conversations so that she can be practiced to stand up for what she believes in when she starts looking for a husband.
Right.
Kindness and a sense of personal identity that I would pray that this future man has in Jesus.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Dude, pray it over him, man.
Pray it over.
Man, so my in-laws, we have been through the ups and downs, and at one point, you know, my mother-in-law sat me down one day and she was like, I have prayed for you before I knew who you were. I have prayed that you would do certain things before I knew it was going to be you. Right. And it just kind of hit me like they have invested in me to invest in their daughter, which is wild to think about, especially when we're talking about long term, right? Like a lot of days marriage gets looked at as like it's a transaction or it has an expiration date. You know, you can get married with a marriage certificate that has an expiration date. Didn't know that.
Really?
Oh yeah.
And it's like
it's like 2 or 5 years. It's not like a long time either.
That's wild.
Dang.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. That's an option. Now, I don't think it's an option in Texas.
Not with my wife. No.
But it's just
We're
show
locked down.
Yeah.
That is not ending.
No trial period.
Yeah.
But it just shows you where we're at as a society. Like we're in the world, and the world is starting to take over. But those are things like when you see things like that, and then you hear like, "Hey, I've been praying for you before I met you."
Yeah,
like that. That's deep. So,
well, it's like something like you mentioned, being a dad. with a young child. I'd say especially a girl. It really doesn't matter, boy or girl, having a child. And something you said made me think of. I don't remember if I read it or if it was on a video somewhere a couple of years ago, but it's something that has stuck with me since I heard it. It was basically some story or tidbit about how, as a parent, like obviously there's times we have to discipline our children, right? We can't always be their friend, right? We have to discipline them sometimes, but there are times that we need to. It's easy for us to not think about it and snap and get angry with our children or push them off or not be patient with them or just disregard them and all that. And whatever it was I was reading was saying, like with a grown-up child and her mom and talking about how the moment with your kid where you snap at them and just tell them to like just go play in your room, like, or you yell at them for something they didn't do or didn't mean to do when you could have been patient, is that's just a moment to us, right? We don't really think about it. It just doesn't really affect us down the road.
It's just on the radar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, to that kid, that's what they see of you, and that is what they think of you, and that lasts with them. If it's here and there, like obviously that happens, right? But if that's every day, if their experience with you is that you're just disregarding them, that's who you are to them, right? And so that's long term, and that'll affect them. Versus, I try my hardest to be patient with Sarah, and it's something Taylor and I. She even brought it up the other day. Taylor and I talk about it all the time. Is each one of us, fortunately, is pretty good at the things the other one is not good at, especially with Sarah. And so in our relationship, somehow, I don't know how this worked out, I am the one that's patient with her. I think a lot of this because I heard that, and I don't want her to grow up and see me as the dad that didn't have time for her. I want to be important to her, and I want her to feel important. And so I try my hardest. There's days that I'm like, please leave me alone. Like that happens, right? But
that's
for the most part, I try my hardest to give her the attention she deserves and not just brush her off.
Yeah.
So it's important, and I think that I think what you just talked about and what you asked about, what you pray for in her husband later on, is a lot of that comes from who you are to her. Because I mean, there's that thing around that girls married somebody just like their dad, but it's kind of true. Like if you exude confidence and kindness and patience to them, that's what they love and that's what they want, and it goes a long way with them. So
yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah.
You got anything else you want to say or tack on, or
no?
Anybody you want to call out?
Yeah, dude.
Call out to my wonderful, perfect wife, Allie.
Oh yeah,
for holding it down. I mean, she does everything. She's the reason why I can even be here right now. Yeah, it's because she is perpetually supporting us in a million tiny ways.
Yeah.
And I am without words for how much I love her. And that I am sitting here because of the incredible way that she's loved me.
That's awesome.
Good. That was sweet.
Yeah,
that was super sweet.
Yeah,
we were talking about more like talking shit about people. But I love it. Way to end it, dude.
Let me get my list out real quick.
Yeah. Next time we'll talk about my worst deals, and then some of my true colors will come.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming, man. I love getting to talk. Like when we started this, we talked about like, obviously a lot of what we talk about is going to be fire based because who we are, that's who we know. But we didn't want to just do
strictly firemen,
right? It's so important to understand perspective. We're trying to reach more than just a couple of firemen, right? So it's so important to talk to people that aren't in the fire service. We're going to talk to some cops. We've talked to some mental health professionals. We're talking with you. We've got some other people coming up that aren't related to the fire service. It's so important to get that perspective, right? So I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, let's be honest though. We've tried to reach out to some cops, but you dudes are shady. Like dudes are just like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to get on camera. It's like, I don't know what you're doing in your personal life to where you're can't get on camera. Undercover. Yeah, okay. Like you're not all undercover, bro. Chill. Easy there on your patrol beat.
So yeah, thanks for coming on. Thank you guys for sticking out, listen to it. The store's closed now.
Yeah.
So everybody that bought something off there, we really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be doing another one.
Yeah.
At some point, but
I've been meaning to ask you about this. I think we should sign whoever purchased the very last shirt.
Do you think we're that important?
No, not at all. But how cool would that be, though? Right? Like,
sure, yeah.
The first run of that is going to be the first and only run of that design, right?
One day it'll be super valuable.
Yeah,
yeah.
As a podcast that didn't make it, yes. As dudes has failed at something. But how cool would that be?
That would be cool.
Yeah. They probably wouldn't wear the motherfucker to be like, why'd you sign all over my shirt?
So yeah, anyway, the store's closed. So thank you for purchasing that. Look out for more stuff from that.
Yeah, dog, we really appreciate it. If we make any money, all that money is going to go towards the beautification of the podcast, and then, probably help starting the foundation. So that'll be really cool.
Yeah, we'll have more stuff coming on that. Next episode after this, I can actually say who it is because we're recording it soon.
Yeah.
Ashley Watson's going to be on. If you don't know Ashley, you should. She does a lot of great stuff.
The healthology nurse.
Healthology nurse, firefighter extraordinaire. She does a ton, and she's incredibly smart. So
yeah,
looking forward to talking with her. So look out for that coming. You got anything else?
Go out and love yourself, man.
Yeah.
Recently there's been this talk about oh man, nobody loves me. Hey bro, go love yourself. Get some personal time. Go recharge your systems. I have been on this golf kick lately. I'm no good at golf. I'm terrible at golf. Worst thing in the world. But lately I have just been going out and hanging with the guys and golfing. And that has been a blast. It has helped me tenfold. And so it's just been awesome.
Yeah.
So
definitely go out there, love yourself, love your friends.
Yeah.
And take care of yourself. So.
Yep.
Cool.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one.
See you, boys.